Congratulations. Oh,
And
here we go.
there
It's
we
now recording.
Okay. I'll let that go, and we'll catch up a bit later, right?
Okay. Yep, sounds good. Thank you, James.
Rather than share the personals for everyone later.
Yeah, could you please turn off your camera now and
Oh,
mute?
sorry. Yeah.
That's okay. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. It's Anita Fletcher here with our next webinar for the year. Our monthly webinar series continues, and sometimes there's more than one webinar in a month because there's so much going on for people in the lead up to recruitment season. And I'm waiting for other people to join, but I thought I will start right on time. So thanks very much for registering. And if you're not familiar with our work, I will I'll give you a brief outline of that. So first of all, I mean, today it's such an important topic. Your interviews are obviously the path that gets you into, allows you to continue to pursue your goals, and it's such an important part of the recruitment process. So the question is, how do you deliver a standout performance that is going to get you into the role that you're looking for? So as I mentioned, a brief overview here. I started Standout Medical Careers in 2020, and prior to that, I was working with doctors within the Australian Medical Association for 5 years. So I've worked with a lot of doctors, both in Australia and overseas, and I assist them in all sorts of ways. Some of those ways are the quite obvious ones when you think of career coaching, helping people plan, helping with CVs and interviews, but there's a lot more as well. A number of my clients are on 6-month, 12-month programs. Some of them have come back after having worked with me previously as they've settled into new roles and they're experiencing challenges, and I am letting a few more people in, and also gearing themselves up for further opportunities. So always eager to talk to people and assist you in whatever way I can, even if it's over a 15-minute chat online or a meeting for a coffee. Actually, next week I'm traveling up to Port Macquarie, and I'm very pleased I'll be having a meeting with somebody who has been following the business and attending webinars since I started, and he's now an advanced trainee. So can't wait to hear about how things have been going for him and get to meet in person. So always open to that. Based in Sydney, and love traveling to work with people, and there'll be a few interstate trips again this year, as usual. And including a visit to South Australia in August, if not before, where the MIGA team that I work with is based. So I'm very proud to have a partnership with MIGA, one of the 4 medical indemnity providers in Australia. And if you're an MIGA member, I offer a discount on some of the services offered there, basically everything. I'm very keen to support MIGA members and everyone, and to offer them a special discount. And we also team up each year, and MIGA puts on a 4-part webinar series, and they're coming up in April and May. We checked in with each other yesterday, actually, to work out a time for our tech check to make sure that all the recordings and everything go well. So if you're an MIGA member, keep an eye out for the invitations that will be coming your way soon, and you can see the website as well. So first of all, I would like you to ponder this question. What's your biggest challenge in presenting yourself as the preferred candidate? So thinking more broadly, because I want you to sort of think about where are the areas that you need to really start focusing on over the coming weeks and months as you prepare for your important interviews. So is it your application documents? Do you feel you're not sure how to convey your value? In terms of interviews, do you have trouble structuring your responses? Or do you feel that you can't communicate very effectively at interview? So please have a think about those. If anyone wants to put in the chat their response, you're very welcome to. But the reason I ask that is I think it's really important for people to identify what is the biggest hurdle or what are the biggest hurdles, and so that you can start really focusing your attention on those things, and, you know, identifying those sore points so that you can really start preparing and practicing and working on those areas before it gets to kind of a week out from the interview, which is what I really don't recommend you doing. So I quite like the image of the hurdler. You know, that's a great example of it. It doesn't come easily. It doesn't come without any effort. You need to prepare and practice. So work out what it is for you that you need to focus on first. And because today's all about interviews, I'll really hone in on those topics. I recently did a presentation on CVs and also applications. I'll record the application webinar this afternoon and put that on the Standout Medical Careers YouTube channel, where you can also find some other recordings of previous webinars in case there's any topics of interest for you there. Okay, so let's talk about, now you're preparing for your interview, what do they want to know? So I think this is really important to think about as well, because a lot of people dive into thinking, okay, what are the questions that they're going to ask? And that's well and good, and you should be thinking about that as well, and I'll get to that later. But first, I want you to think about, you know, there's this group of people that you will be sitting in front of or going across different stations. What are they assessing, essentially? So these are the key things that I think they're looking for, and they're trying to, the information they're trying to gauge about you, about how you work and how you fit into the organisation. So really think about, well, and write down, what are my skills? What are my strengths? What kind of attitude do I have? And really nut it out so that when it comes time to being asked, if you're asked directly about those things, you have words to use and statements to make in order to provide a coherent and articulate and informative response. And as I said, it's all about preparation first and then practicing. So really drill down to these aspects that relate to what they're looking for. They also want to know how you're going to fit. Are you a good fit for that organisation, for that team? Do you have the same sorts of values as the people who work there? Or is there going to be a mismatch between what they're looking for and what they want to achieve and their objectives, and what you're looking for in your career or even your work style? And our values can come across in the sort of different styles that we have. And that's a topic for another webinar, people's styles at work, which I will be running later this year. So really think about that too. Think about, how am I going to fit into that organisation, which requires you to do some research about them. And people will know whether you've done research, whether it is a hospital department, a private practice, a training college. It comes across without you even overtly having to say it. Although you can also say that, you know, I've looked at the website, I've read through the college information, I've spoken to people who work at your practice, whatever it is, showing that you've done some research, that you have an understanding of what it is that they're all about and what makes them tick and what's important to them, and then conveying what the same for you, how you match up with them. Really important is achievements, and I'm going to speak about that at a bit more length in the upcoming slides. What you've learned and what you are learning and what you plan to learn. People really want to know, you know, what are you doing in order to develop yourself as a medical professional and indeed as a trainee for training programs. How are you going to manage your learning, and what are you going to do with it? If we invest all this time, you know, 5 years plus in, or 2, 3, 5 years, whatever the number of years is of the training program or course, what are you going to do with that? You know, and does that match up with what we want people who undertake this training to do? Are you going to be an outstanding representative of our training program? What are your plans? So again, what are you going to do with that in the future? And then what difference are you going to make while you're here with us? And again, more broadly in the future. So there's some of the things that I think people don't necessarily reflect on a lot when they're preparing for interview, because as I said at the start, everyone gets very locked into what are they going to ask me? And what am I going to say? So by doing this preparation, I believe that you can answer any question. It doesn't matter. It becomes less about what are they going to ask, although that's also important. And I know I have a very good idea from 10 years of doing this work as to what kind of questions are asked, how many questions are asked in an interview, and the styles and the types of questions that are asked. So I really, coming back to the point about value, I sort of came up with this quote quite some time ago, because I thought, you know, this is what I hope will be helpful to people. Again, it really is about, it's not just a case of going in there and asking their questions and hoping that you're going to survive the experience and get the job. It's different. It's like your CV can be more than the list of all the things you've done. They're both two opportunities for you to really convey the value that you bring to an organisation. And I've got some really great recent examples of clients who have been successful in their roles. There was one person very recently in the last fortnight who I worked with over the course of a few sessions, and she landed an amazing fellowship opportunity in London. And yesterday I heard from a client from last year, thrilled to hear that he was successful in getting into the psychiatry training program. So, you know, in each of those cases, I think this is really relevant, because we really worked on looking further afield than what questions are they going to ask you. And we did, of course, also work on that. But when I work with people, I'm really trying to uncover other content and as much relevant information about them that is then relevant to that role that they're applying for. And that's how you match up with that. Here's what I have to offer. You know, if you don't understand what your value is, you won't be able to tell other people what that is. So that's sort of one of the first steps. And anyone who's worked in my coaching programs with me or attended workshops, I've got one coming up in Port Macquarie next weekend, knows from a workbook that I have and that I can make available to people as well through my online courses. But anyway, more about that later. But I really start with these sort of foundations of, you know, who are you, what are you good at, and how do we then position that into a value proposition that's going to be really compelling to anybody that you come across in your interview experiences. Okay, so next, once you've really understood what you can offer, what they're looking for, what you can offer, and then understanding the role. So I spoke a little, touched on this, understanding the position, the department, the organisation. So part of that is, and the next point, please read the position description. You know, really pay close attention to that. A lot of people I've worked with, I always ask them when we start working together, please send me your CV and the position description and any other relevant application documents, i.e. cover letters you've written, selection criteria, responses. I want as much information about the candidate and that role as I can find. And I often do my own research into those organisations. But the reason why position description is up there is I think that there is so much information in there, not only about the organisation, and you might, you know, it's easy to start to say, oh yes, it's another one of those template position descriptions that they roll out, they, you know, edit and then and put out for roles. And yep, that's exactly what they do. But the reason they do that is they're really including in there important information like what are the selection criteria. That's not only important when it comes to writing your application, that's really important when it comes to how are you going to convey your information and answer their responses at the interview, because those selection criteria are often very key clues to what they're going to ask you, what they're assessing in the whole entire process. So ignore that document at your peril. Please read it, read all of it thoroughly. You know, I go through with the highlighter. I print them out and highlight key points when I work with clients and identify key things that might come up that aren't necessarily run-of-the-mill kind of interview questions that someone, you know, would expect. So that's where people can get caught off guard because they haven't understood that, oh, they might ask me about that. And often that thing that they get caught out with can be traced back to the position description. So read through it. There's lots of great information that will help you understand how things work there. You know, there can be mention of key stakeholders, internal and external stakeholders. The person, the client who was successful in the London fellowship application, that was a really lengthy document and I really loved seeing it because it was quite different to the Australian health system's position descriptions, and it included information about how the roster works, listed people's names in terms of who works within that institution and related an incredibly valuable source of information. So, you know, and the beauty about the internet is that you can find position descriptions for pretty much any role that you want to consider for the future. It's all there. You just have to Google it and find organizations on LinkedIn or, you know, through the internet. And you know, so there's no excuse for lack of preparation because there's a lot of material available to help you understand what's expected. And indeed, of course, the colleges absolutely provide incredible resources about their training programs, how you're going to be assessed before and after training. You know, I just want to acknowledge what a fantastic job I think they do in creating really outstanding documents to help people navigate their careers and their work in specialty training and beyond that. Think about what are the challenges. Again, sometimes the position description talks about those. Sometimes the websites do. You can look on LinkedIn and follow that organization, people that work there, get insights into what is going on there. You can look up their annual reports if you want to. A lot of the executive leaders that I work with, that's what we kind of focus on and have a look at what's happening and that bigger picture for the organization. But in most cases, at least think about, okay, how do you fit in? So all of the above, including challenges, how do you fit in and how are you going to help them with their challenges? How do you come up with solutions? And that's great. There's some great examples that you could provide to people. Even if they don't ask a question about that, whatever golden content you have about you, any information, share it in the interview. Even if they're not asking you directly, you can use it in an example, perhaps about the way that you are really great at improving systems or solving problems, whatever it is. And that comes up in another slide coming up about strengths. So let's keep moving. All right, important information to convey. Here we go. There's the strength slide I referred to. So write down as many as you can and keep adding to that list. So, this is not an exhaustive list of strengths you could come up with, but I kind of ran out of room. I had so many more that I did a little brainstorm and then started putting them in a slide and had to sort of bail out and think of, I don't know how to represent all of them, but there's some, and they're not necessarily really obvious. A lot of people will think in terms of, for medical interviews, very much along the lines of the headings of their CV, and that is appropriate as well. That's a great place to start telling people about, okay, is qualifications, is learning one of your key strengths and your academic capabilities. Well, if you're applying for a training program, that's a great thing to be talking about in an interview. And so are all of these other things. But so it's about whatever it is that applies to you. Acknowledge it in yourself and prepare to tell other people about it. And that's what interviews essentially is all about. It's a communication exercise in a very specific time frame, in a very specific formal format that you do need to put the time and effort into, and you will reap the benefits. I want to say as well that recent client, she was, and like so many people that I work with, outstanding career to date, incredible CV and achievements. She was lacking confidence. She was worried that when it got to the interview, she wasn't going to perform well because she said, sometimes I'm okay and sometimes I'm not. And so she didn't want to leave anything to chance, which is the case with a lot of my clients who, are going for something that's really important to them, and they don't want to risk, they want to give themselves every opportunity to succeed. And, she had incredible strengths in research that, was one of the things that she wanted to discuss. And there was achievements that were, pretty notable that would be hard to ignore for people. So where she really had the research, the clinical trial that she had run made an impact in terms of the removal of certain devices by the TGA and globally for women, the gynecological device that had been used and is no longer approved. So, that's a pretty compelling difference. Not everyone has been able to, like she said, basically it was achieving the dream of every researcher to really make impact. But everything you do is making an impact. It's your job to think about what is that, and what am I good at? Is, you know, active listening. Let's not underplay the importance of that. You know, when you talk to people in daily life, non-medical people, that's the thing that a lot of people talk about when they talk about doctors, you know, whether or not they listened well. So that's a critical strength, and that's such an important part of your communication skills, which of course is something that is always raised in applications, and frequently, very frequently at interview, there'll be a question about communication, because it is a core competency for all of the medical specialties. So do that homework for yourself. It'll not only develop this content you're building to provide valuable information to the panel, but it will also do wonders for your confidence. Okay, if you're suffering the imposter syndrome that I hear about so many times each year, that's really going to, I believe, assist you with that. Think about any leadership roles, any administrative roles. What are your strengths in those areas? What are your experiences? You know, those experiences also really speak to a lot of different other skills. So your ability to work with people, your ability to step up, your ability to make decisions, your ability to influence others, persuade, you name it. There's a lot of different skills that are you know, part of, inherent in these positions and these activities. So think about that. Efficiency, you know, administrative is there. How are you efficient? Are you able to make the systems that other people are working in more efficient? You know, panels would be crazy not to hear that message if it's something that you're able to convey, and speak about the results. And I'm often saying to people for CVs, list the results, put the numbers, put the dollar signs, put the percentages in. You know, that little number or big number can make a difference. It's a small piece of content. It's a few characters on your CV. That's what I mean by little. Can convey an enormous amount of information. Another client that I'm working with, she's one of those return clients. We've worked together previously over a 6-month period. She was successful in gaining this amazing role in another country. And now, a few years on, we're working together to navigate the growth of basically that role, and also how to fit in her PhD. But, you know, she's talked about the funds that she has raised for the organisation, and they're large amounts of money, and they're incredibly important activities in order to continue to fund and grow this institution that started with one person. There are at least now 8 people there. So, you know, there's a lot of skills in here, and that you don't even realize you're developing them half the time. So think about what are they, and what would I have to say about those. And obviously, not everyone's at that point in their career yet. I work with a lot of JMOs and interns, you know, PGY 2, 3, 4, you name it. So, but I'm saying that for those people, you possibly already engaged in really relevant activities while you were in medical school, and beyond that. And then it's also worth thinking about these things for the future. And similarly, any acknowledgements that you've had from other people about the excellence of your work, don't be afraid to mention those in interviews, just as you need to list them on your CV. They will stand out. Okay, again, achievement. So on to the achievement sections that I mentioned previously. There they are. There's some. Think of those categories. You know, what have you achieved in each of those areas? And what I find is that most people I work with, they've got them there, they've achieved them, but they're not conveying them in their CV, and they're not necessarily conveying them in interview until we start working together and I start drawing them out of them. And they say, oh yeah, well, I suppose I have done that, and my response is always, well, if you don't tell the panel, they will never know. Okay, so it's your job to be the communicator of your information in that situation, and that's what an interview is. And please don't keep these things to yourself, either on your CV or your interviews. This is a forum where you are specifically being asked to provide this information. So you have permission to speak about your achievements. Often doctors say, I've been taught not to speak about myself and what I've achieved. And an interview is a specific request for you to do that. So it's more than okay. It's actually necessary for you to be able to speak about yourself and what you've done. Okay, and these achievements really overlap with the key inclusions in your CV, and showing that everything is connected. And even though, you might not realize the skills that enabled you to attain certain qualifications, might not be ones that you would really normally think about and necessarily line up and relate to those. So, so think broadly about, what is your big picture and what are all the parts of that that make up what you offer and what you're capable of doing. And I've got a nice slide at the end to encourage you to remember just how much you've learned and how much you have to offer, because I met a lot of people who are lacking in confidence, and they have these crises of confidence when they're faced with interviews. And a lot of them tell me, my communication's great when I'm working with patients, but when I get in front of an interview, the whole thought of the process is concerning. So that's why we're here today. So hopefully this information helps you. So please also think about these questions during your preparation, and there's lots of other similar questions I could have come up with. But these will help you. They're designed to help you come up with examples, because examples are excellent ways of demonstrating your experiences and your knowledge at interview. And these are really based on questions. I've just reworded them, taken basically an interview question and turned it into a question for you to think about. So the first interview question is, tell us about a time you managed a patient well that reflected your communication skills, or tell us about a time where you had to manage a conflict with a patient or one of their family members. So we're looking at, let's find an example of these situations with these different people. It could be the patient, it could be the team, it could be your boss, whoever it is that displays X skill. So, that is definitely a very typical type of interview question. So, and it's a behavioral style interview question. So it's really, as they're assessing, how have you managed in the past, so that they can think about, okay, how do we expect this person to behave in the future? That's it. So I won't go through each of these, but I hope they're useful examples to you to help you do that preparation. I'm just going to, I hope that window's not covering that on my slide. If there are any issues, please let me know and I can send you the slides. But I will make the recording available as well. Okay, so selection criteria and interview responses. I should have put in and interview there. CanMed's framework here. to remind you to pay attention to the competencies of the specialty that you are working in or interested in gaining specialist training in, or indeed progressing further within that specialty. Really pay attention to the competencies outlined by that specialty. All of the colleges list what they are. So you need to know what they are, and you need to be able to respond to questions that are related to those. And as I've mentioned already, really showcase your abilities and your achievements. So I think we've covered abilities quite a bit in terms of skill. And we've also certainly talked about achievements. So prior to the interview, here's some preparation that you can do. You know, really importantly, know the format. How long is that interview going to be? What is the style? Is it one panel or is it multiple mini interviews? Is it in person or is it online? You know, those relatively basic details are really important. And if you're not sure, ask the people who are conducting the interview. They will not mind you phoning them up and saying, how long will the interview be, please? And I say find that out because it's a very different dynamic with a 15-minute interview to a 1-hour interview. And that really will influence the way that you prepare and, you know, how long your responses are going to be. Because you're limited by time in a 15-minute interview, and it'll be over before you know it. So it's really important that you, in any duration, that you do the preparation and the practice, and you'll feel a lot more comfortable going into it. Think as that second point really relates to the earlier point about what are the panel looking for, and think about from their perspective, well, what do they want to see? There's that image of the 3 people sitting across, you know, what are they going to see when you sit down in that chair in front of them, or when your Zoom camera comes on? You know, even down to the brass tacks of thinking about what's your background? How's your camera set up? Do you have a bookshelf behind you that is full of mess? You know, lots of files, things all falling out of the place that's going to potentially give you them an impression that you could be a little bit disorganized. You know, whether or not you are, impressions count. I'm still trying to let this person in. Somebody's having trouble getting in. So really think about each of those points. I won't go through them all, except I will say, please smile. Don't forget to smile. It shows you as a person. It will physically help you relax. I heard something quite a long time ago, actually, and I think about it when I go to sleep, that if you smile, that helps you fall asleep. And that's because it helps you relax all of your facial muscles. And it's the same with an interview. If you smile, you're putting yourself at a bit more ease, and you're also showing those people, and it's hard for them not to smile back, which will also put you at more ease, that you're not, you know, meeting a panel of, you know, bulldogs who are going to eat you alive given the first opportunity. You know, these are people who basically are other people who understand what you're going through, because they have to go through it as well at various intervals in their careers, so they know what it's like. So show that you're friendly but professional, and most of all, be yourself. You can't be someone else, so don't even try. You know, be authentic, and try and relax. You know, that's so important. As I've said, practicing will help you be a bit more relaxed and at ease, and get someone else to help you. You know, this is what I do for a living. There's a lot of other people, your friends, family, peers, who will help you. I'm here if you need me. But please get someone else to work with you, because having that sounding board, having someone giving you feedback and encouragement and making suggestions will really, really help you a lot in this experience that a lot of people get very nervous about. Okay, I've been there too. I know what it's like. Here are some typical questions. So feel free to take a screenshot if you like. You know, they're really common. This first slide really is about challenges, including conflict and stress, you know, prioritizing, dealing with a lot of high workload as all doctors face. I saw my specialist the other day and he's not taking new appointments for 5 months. I mean, this is the situation that obviously, as you well know, the medical system finds itself in, and that you need to work in and that you need to negotiate. So there's a few that are really about dealing with difficult situations and how you manage those with other people. And these are really about, okay, we want to know about how you're going to manage, you know, take leadership, find your way through this role, continue to develop all of those sort of growth aspects of each professional's career. And really importantly, think about, you know, why should they hire you? If you can't express that to yourself in your words, then you won't be able to do it to the panel if they ask you that question. And they may well ask you that question. If I was interviewing somebody, that I would ask that question. Absolutely. If I had 5 questions, that would be one of them. And another one would be, tell me about yourself. You know, so that's 2 out of 5 gone. So, you know, even if you prepare those, you're 2/5 of the way through it. I know a lot of the multiple mini interviews and the college training programs ask a lot more questions than 5. But a lot of other roles only ask 5. When you've got 15 minutes, that's pretty much all you have time for. So really consider these types of questions and practice. A few golden rules. So your presentation, I've got a next slide that represents that well. And I think all of these things, most of them at least, come across in the next image of how you present at the interview. And your body language is super important. And showing them that you are prepared, you know, they will know whether or not you've prepared for that interview. It's written all over you as soon as you walk in and as soon as you start speaking. And so people are starting to make assessments very early on. They'll also notice if you're on time. So always make sure you're on time and just don't leave yourself in this position that you could be late for an interview. It's not a good look. It is a very bad position to start from. If you have a really outstanding reason, make sure you apologize and explain what that reason is. This is a professional, very formal setting, and you know, give it the level of professionalism that it demands. One of the senior managers I used to work with when I worked in another sector, he always said with meetings, if people were late, our senior management team, people would walk in and he just said, it's not good enough. Punctuality is a key performance indicator. So, you know, I've always obviously remembered that from, I don't know, 15 years ago, because it really speaks to, you know, your skin in the game, the seriousness, your respect with which you take this event, and reflects on how you will be reliable within your work setting, and the respect of for other people's time. And that in itself is really worth remembering in terms of building strong relationships with your peers and bosses and juniors and allied health professionals and everyone you work with. Respect other people's time. You, as I said, everybody's got a lot on their plates and they're time poor. So do your part to acknowledge that other people also are trying to do the best job they can in often pretty trying circumstances. And make sure that you thank the panel at the end. And again, smile, end it on a positive note, and they'll remember that. Here's the slide I was talking about that speaks to me about one, presentation. It's not a casual affair. You aren't going to the pub. You are going to a professional, a highly professional interview setting. So get a good suit or a great dress and jacket or whatever women want to wear, suits, whatever it is, the best outfit you can afford. It doesn't have to be expensive, but it needs to be immaculate. You need to be immaculately presented. You can't walk in with messy hair. You can't walk in with shabby shoes. People will notice, and it will not work in your favor. They will notice when you are dressed like the most senior consultant you can think of. Think about what they would wear to an interview and do the same thing. And that picture of the gentleman in the suit, you know, that also to me displays confidence, that body language, that, you know, whatever it is that's going to make you feel comfortable, if it's straightening your tie or if it's doing the power pose before you go in, definitely take a deep breath, do whatever is going to make you feel confident. The other image that, you know, I chose that not just for the casual clothes, but for the whole body language. Please make eye contact with your interviewers. You know, at times I've been looking at my other screen during this and then, you know, coming back to the camera. You have to look straight into the camera if you're on Zoom. You can't be, don't look off to the side. And if you're in an interview, don't move around on the chair. I met with someone at 10:30 last night in India. He was swiveling on his chair for the entire 15 minutes. And actually, when I do meet with him, I'll see, when I meet with him again, I'll see if he still does it, and I'll recommend to him that he stop doing it, because it's very distracting. It does not convey confidence. Fidgeting doesn't convey confidence. So think about all of these things and you're going to come across with more confidence, and that will also build your own confidence. Okay, we're coming up to the end of the session now. I'm happy to stop the recording and take questions or have a chat with people afterwards. A few things that are coming up. I'm launching a CV mini course in a couple of weeks, and that is priced it's very affordable. I wanted to make a sort of bite-sized course. I've got some other larger courses, but I'm going to try some smaller courses for people. It's priced at, you know, $49, so it's within most people's reach. A few hours of online learning to assist people to really get your CV where it needs to be. I'm traveling to Port Macquarie next week, so if there's anyone else up north who'd like to catch up, please let me know. Send me an email or give me a call. Very happy to meet up. And of course, my thoughts are, as I'm sure everyone's thoughts are, with the people on the coast who are currently undergoing some very challenging weather conditions, and I hope people get through that well. And here am I looking at my bottom screen again. I'm also doing a 3-part training series at the end in the last week of March. So please hop on the website and register for those. Have a look at the topics, all different career development related topics that I hope will help you. And then, as I mentioned before, the MIGA webinars in April and May. So lots coming up as we approach the interview, busy time of the year for people preparing for their interviews. And I mentioned the CV course, that's a breakdown of what's included in that. So I'll make that information available to everyone shortly. And if you need any help, we all need some help from time to time. Please don't hesitate to reach out. You can book in for a free career consult or book in for a paid session or a series of sessions. I offer different programs for people. You can also have a look at the blog page on my website. And as I mentioned before, the YouTube channel for other video recordings. Here's that nice slide I wanted to end on. Please remember that you do have so much that you've achieved so far. And I say that because sometimes I work with people and they've kind of lost sight of their achievements. You know, they've just become a list of things on their CV. And I remind them to really look at what they've done and how far they've come in a short number of years. Every year, you're all developing so much. So when it comes to interview, really think about what are those things specifically and how can I best convey that information to the people who are really sitting down and their ears are open and they really want to hear it. And you know, you really owe it to yourself and all your hard work to do this well, as I'm sure you will. And you know, you've got so much to help. You've got so much knowledge, skills, and experience to share and benefit the people that you're serving. And then, you know, think about how you can communicate your value and professional brand. You can do that. You know, I never used to be able to speak in public, but I developed that skill set. I was not someone who was did that very easily at all. I was very reserved, and with a bit of work, and good advice from people, listening to that, practicing the sorts of things I've spoken about today, I've really turned that around to the point that I enjoy doing it very much. Remember, you can ask others for feedback and assistance. You've got a lot of people around you to support you, so don't be shy. Please ask them. They want to help you. And keep your eye on the prize. Think about your goals. Stay committed to those goals. And even if you don't succeed at first, go back again. I've often referred to a client I had last year who was successful in getting onto orthopedic training on his third attempt, you know, and this is someone who had so many great inclusions, so much professional support and a really strong network. You know, it's hard. It's some of the things that a lot of you are going for are incredibly difficult to achieve. So acknowledge that and understand that before you go in, as you're going into it, and don't beat yourself up if you don't succeed on that attempt. You have other attempts to go back the next year and try again. So, you know, they're my parting words of encouragement and advice. I hope they're helpful. There's the website. Thank you very much for your time on a Saturday morning. I hope it's been helpful. I am going to end the presentation now and also stop the recording. I always have trouble stopping the recording. It's quite annoying. I'm not sure why that window just does not open up for me. Look, I'm going to have to, oh, hang on. Look, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to end the session, but I can log back in case anyone would like to ask a question, and this one won't be recorded. So if you'd like to have a chat, please come back in, and I look forward to speaking with you soon, if not today, another time. Thank you very much. Bye for now.